Steve Reeves and Larry Scott are two of the all-time greats for sure. Steve Reeves, of course, culminated his bodybuilding career in 1950 with a big win at that year's Universe competition. You'll notice he picked up himself a Sandow statue that year. Very interesting. There's some history behind that as well. Larry Scott, he was renowned for taking the 1965 Mr. Olympia title. He got himself a crown, which he did not even want to put that on his head because his hair was all slicked back. Joe made him put that on. He kept trying to take it off, and Joe, no, you gotta put that on, Larry. I paid big money for that crown. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, uneasy is the head that wears the crown sometimes. Let's have a comparison between these two studs, keeping in mind that the pharmaceutical grade vitamins were probably a lot different, if any, for Steve Reeves. He's renowned for being natural. I don't know, I wasn't there. And Larry Scott admittedly was involved in some extra vitamins, and you can see that on his physique. He's half the size of Steve Reeves, though. Height-wise, structure, he's losing that end. I mean, look at the shoulder width of Steve Reeves, and don't be fooled by this front relaxed. He's not even displaying his legs, and neither is Larry Scott. But both of them, pretty decent set of legs. Look at the size of the arms on Larry Scott. He's a little bulldog. But anyway, this is just the front relaxed. Let's have a look at the front double biceps, and look at the arms on Larry Scott. Best arms in bodybuilding history, perhaps. Of course, Sergio Oliva was right there after him, so kind of overshadows his arm development. But trust me, biceps, triceps, and those forearms, the combination, so full. And he is, of course, dwarfing Steve Reeves in that aspect. But then again, you look at the structure of Reeves. He has a much smaller waist. Scott known for a fairly wide waist. And look at the legs on Reeves, in particular those calves. It is a very tight one in the front double bi. I would lean slightly towards Reeves because I believe he is just so dominant in the torso and probably the legs, maybe not the quads, because let's face it, Larry has a shorter leg, but probably just as thick. So better limbs, but I prefer the torso and the aesthetics of Steve Reeves. Much better. Front lat spread. You almost have to giggle when you see this one of Steve Reeves. I think the picture's distorted or something, or maybe the wind picked up his hair. He looks like a poofadoof, a flamoof. Look at his hair. I think it's actually his head is too big. But anyway, I don't like to use this one. I figured I would show it just to get the joke in. This is actually an on-stage picture of Steve Reeves. And he is still losing. You can even see in the arms and just the amount of muscle. It's Larry Scott. He's just action-packed. But structurally and the lats themselves, Steve Reeves, I would give him this one in the front lat spread, without a doubt. Side shots, you're definitely going to have to lean towards Larry Scott in the side shots. Most of the time, the aesthetics are taken out of these ones, and the side tricep is no different. Look at the size of the arm on Larry in comparison to Steve Reeves. Steve almost looks fairly lanky, I guess, in comparison, taking nothing away from Reeves, no disrespect meant to him whatsoever. He does look fantastic aesthetically. But speaking as a bodybuilding fan, this is a Larry Scott shot, for sure. Larry Scott shot. The Larry Scott shot. Anyway, this is a type of a most muscular, I guess, but we're going to count it as a side chest? I don't know. It's more of a side tricep. It is a similar pose, and this one really displays, like I said, the amount of thick, raw muscle of Larry Scott that he possesses. But taking nothing away again from Steve Reeves, very athletic looking. I'm sure he could beat up Larry Scott for what that's worth. You ever watch the UFC? They look just like Steve Reeves. He'd be the last man that I'd want to fight. Very athletic looking, tall, rangy. He could give you an awful snap, that's for sure. Back developments. Now this may sway my entire decision making for this entire competition. The back development of Larry Scott is unreal. Look at the lower lat insertions. Look at the traps. He lacks V-taper, which Steve does have in spades. But I don't think so, Reeves. This is a Larry Scott shot, again with the joke. Anyway, you look at the legs from the hamstrings to the Christmas tree to the delts. This is a much more thick, powerful pose for Larry Scott. Poor Reeves. There was no rear lat spread for Reeves. There was actually one of Scott, so we're safe to assume that he was going to get the rear lat spread as well. Just a stronger athlete from behind. So at the end of the day, it is a close call between these two. And depending on what you prefer, the more muscular look of Larry Scott or the more aesthetic and I guess lankier, more rangier look of Steve Reeves. I believe, speaking as a bodybuilding judge, if you were to happen to throw a mask on these two guys, put them at the NPC level, throw them out there, I do believe that Larry Scott would get the edge. Steve Reeves is more of a statue, more of a model, I guess you could say. And Larry Scott resembles more of a modern bodybuilder, per se. So, in my opinion, Larry Scott gets the edge, and he gets the win in this classic confrontation, this classic comparison. And these ones never get as many views, but I love doing these ones. This is what men look like, without the enhancements, of course. Not to say that neither of these guys, or we can guarantee Larry Scott was enhanced, but I'm sure if you took all the pharmaceuticals out of this physique, it would still resemble it, I'm sure. You can't say that about today's competitors. Hope you enjoyed this one, guys. Hit a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. Have a good day.